Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Joe Imbriano, the Fullerton Informer, coming to you live from the streets of Orange County, California. Today's weather forecast calls for partly cloudy skies, high of about 85 degrees with a 100% chance of chemtrails, ladies and gentlemen. But the weather forecast is not the reason for this broadcast this morning. The broadcast this morning is going to focus on a 43-year-old woman who is a flight attendant who is in a coma after contracting what appears to be, or what is reported to be, measles. And so what has happened, ladies and gentlemen, is we have a neuroinvasive encephalitic presentation of what they allege to be measles, right? Now, I want to talk to you specifically about the patient in this case. She is a 43-year-old flight attendant from Israel. And I want to pay particular attention to her occupation. And this is an extremely significant component to this story. We all know that airplanes are made out of metallic alloys, specifically aluminum and titanium and some other metallic compounds, to give them the ability to be strong, yet flex, and be light enough to get off the ground without having a rocket attached to it, right? Have any of you ever taken microwave radiation level measurements inside an airplane? Have any of you taken an RF meter on an airplane? Well, I have several times. And as a matter of fact, every time I go through the TSA checkpoint with one of these devices, they look at me and tell me to go to the pat down, right? Because they don't know what it is. They ask me what it is, and I say it's a radiation detector. And they say, why do you need to bring this on an airplane? I said, none of your business. Flight attendants have a variety of issues with their health. There's a guy in Fullerton who used to push Wi-Fi in the schools real hard, right? And he ended up, I guess, going on a camping trip and coming home in a wheelchair after ending up in a coma from being bitten by a mosquito. So it was alleged that he had succumbed to a neuroinvasive encephalitic presentation of what has been alleged to be West Nile. And when I say neuroinvasive, what I mean is this thing gets into their nervous system and starts shutting things down. In the case of this gentleman, he ended up being paralyzed. Well, what this gentleman that I'm referring to and this flight attendant have in common, aside from their relative ages at the time that this took place, is their occupations involved chronic microwave exposure. High level of microwave exposure. You see, the flight attendant spends her entire working hours inside a resonant cavity, folks. That's right. An airplane is basically a low-powered microwave oven. And this individual worked in a surgical setting that has chronic microwave exposure. Now, have any of you ever taken a radiation detector into an operating room? Well, I know someone who has in the medical field. And believe me, what the medical field employees in the surgical setting have in common with the flight attendants is high levels of chronic microwave radiation exposure. That's right. You see, on the airplanes, so you can entertain yourself with your stupid gadgets, they put these Wi-Fi systems in the airplanes, right? And what do you think happens when you stick a Wi-Fi system inside a metal box? Well, what happens when, you know, I used to love doing this when I was a child. Remember those little super balls? We used to love those super balls. My dad worked at a box factory, and right next door to it was a rubber factory. He'd bring home these super balls once in a while. And boy, we love these super balls, right? We'd get into a closed up room and we'd throw that thing as hard as we could, and it'd bounce off the wall, the ceiling, the floor, and it would just bounce for like 5 minutes and just kept going back and forth. That's what the microwaves do inside an airplane, ladies and gentlemen. The microwaves bounce around inside the airplane, and they amplify and they redirect, and it's just a horrible environment to be in. Now, we know that microwave radiation is a weapon. We know that microwave radiation is something that causes health problems, ladies and gentlemen, that it causes cancer, that it causes infertility, that it causes insomnia, that it causes single and double strand DNA breaks, that it causes mitochondrial disorder, mitochondrial collapse. Now, I want to talk to you about these similarities between this 43-year-old flight attendant and this man in Fullerton that went on the campaign trail to put Wi-Fi in the schools, right? This man spent a considerable amount of time in a coma, and he came out of the coma and had come home in a wheelchair, right? Paralyzed, right? This woman is in a coma right now. We don't know what's going to happen to her. But I will tell you that when you are exposed to chronic microwave radiation in an occupational setting, such as a flight attendant, or if you're in the surgical ward of a hospital with all of the RF scanners and the telemetry equipment and all the communication devices that are on wireless communications frequencies, you're getting microwaved. And a lot of these surgical settings have steel walls, right? They're stainless steel, right? So, you know, there's a very strong similarity between the operating room in a hospital and an airplane when it comes to the radiation levels and the types of resonant cavities that these people spend their days and evenings in for extended periods of times. It's extremely unhealthy to be a flight attendant, folks, okay? When you are exposed to chronic microwave radiation, you are affected all the way down to your cellular level, folks. Mitochondrial disorder, mitochondrial collapse, yields all kinds of chronic metabolic disorders and ailments, and makes you susceptible to being exposed to genetically modified viral particles that could very well have been released intentionally by the government. That's right. A lot of these epidemics can trace their roots all the way back to Fort Detrick, Maryland, or some laboratory, right? My point is that when you're chronically exposed to microwave radiation, your immune system is going to be kaput. And so you are more susceptible to, as in this case, neuroencephalitic presentation of either measles or West Nile. These neuroinvasive diseases are harmless to most healthy people. Measles doesn't kill healthy people. Measles is a rite of passage to healthy young children. It helps their immune system. But they want you to think it's a death sentence. It's a death sentence to the immunocompromised. And people that work in occupational settings that are exposed to chronically high levels of microwave radiation, electromagnetic warfare exposure, have compromised immune systems. And as such, and as a result of the aforementioned, are more susceptible to illness. The reason I believe this woman's in a coma is because she's a flight attendant and she's exposed to microwaves all day. Microwave radiation suppresses your melatonin, disrupts your sleep hormone melatonin production, disrupts your circadian rhythm, and if you can't sleep, you can't heal and you can't be healthy, folks. Aside from the mitochondrial effects, mitochondrial disorder, you have the voltage-gated calcium channels at the cellular level that are disrupted. I mean, you're electrocuting yourself when you're in an airplane with a Wi-Fi system going with 30 or 40 devices all day long. You know, 5-hour flights, 20-hour flights. Can you imagine, you know, living inside a microwave oven? Well, some of the students at Troy High School do, and they love the captivity. That's right. You know, there's a high school in Fullerton that's got sheet metal walls that's put these things in. And we've tried for years to warn the students, but the students love their captors. They have Stockholm Syndrome at Troy High School. And that's where the tyrants of tomorrow are being trained to worship those who endanger, harm, and inculcate and indoctrinate to the detriment of their own health and safety and mental and physical well-being. But the point is, in this video, is that we're being told that, oh my gosh, you know, now a woman's got in a coma from measles. Ladies and gentlemen, this woman is in a coma because she has a job that sets her up for getting sick all the time. All right? And there's a lot of flight attendants who have a lot of chronic health problems, folks. Okay, now, there's another aspect to being a flight attendant, and that is lack of oxygen. You see, they're in this sardine can, and we all know that if you've been on an airplane, the air's not so great. You know, that thing flies at an altitude, you know, 25, 30,000 feet where the air's thin, so it's got to bring its own air. It's got to run oxygen generators. And these airlines are cheapskates, and they, you know, they run really thin on that. They want to keep the margins up, so, you know, they chintz on the air, right? And so the air is really bad on these airplanes, and so, and then you're dealing with, you know, pressurization issues, and, you know, you're dealing with a hyperbaric chamber to an extent that does affect the oxygen levels of the blood. So on a variety of fronts, this woman is set up for being immunocompromised just by her occupational exposure. And now we're going to be sold a bill of goods that how deadly the measles is, folks. You know, I know people that that sniffed head cleaner and dropped acid and used MEK at work on their bare hands, and you know, snorted an 8-ball every weekend, and ended up going through the windshield of their car at a gas station because they confused the brake for the gas pedal, and ended up running into a tree because they were so high as a kite, right? And those people were a victim of their environment, ladies and gentlemen. A normal person is not going to punch the gas at a gas station and run into a tree unless you're psyched out on some sort of psychedelic chemical experience. Well, normal people do not die from the measles, ladies and gentlemen. Normal people do not succumb to these ailments. They simply recover, and their immunity for other things in the future is increased. Why is it now that we have this epidemic of shingles in the elderly population, folks? Well, we know that shingles is related to the chicken pox, right? But see, the problem is the children aren't getting the chicken pox, and grandma's not being exposed to the kids with the chicken pox, and so she's not getting her natural immunity, right? And so what happens is shingles takes over. Now, what is shingles? Well, it's caused by an inflammation of the nerve endings, right, in the skin, right? A certain part of the body, and we know that nerves are electrical. Isn't that amazing, right? So all you senior citizens out there that got your shingles vaccine and still got shingles, how do you like that smart meter on your bedroom wall? How do you like that Wi-Fi router on your nightstand? How do you like your how do you like to be electrocuted by all your gadgets that you play Scrabble and watch Jeopardy on, right? Is it all that important to you? That's why shingles is back, because of electromagnetic exposure and lack of chickenpox proliferation in the young children. Grandma doesn't get to see the kids anymore with chickenpox. We're being sold a bill of goods. They're stuffing a 300-pound sack of crap in a 50-pound bag, and they're trying to shove it down our throats, folks, okay? And this is just more propaganda. I'm trying to get out in front of what they're trying to do with this propaganda. Flight attendants are living and working in a freaking microwave oven on an airplane, folks. All right? They're short on air. They're high on RF exposure. And of course they're going to get sick. They're sleep deprived. They're changing time zones. They're up all night on their blue light gadgets. That's a whole nother component to this. So flight attendants have a very poor health outcome these days, ladies and gentlemen. They're not healthy because of the chronic microwave exposure, just like the people in the surgical setting. I know quite a bit of breast cancer from people that work in the surgical setting. You know, this particular individual, this gentleman that was on the campaign trail for wireless radiation, he was showing up at school board meetings, doing presentations promoting the safety of Wi-Fi in schools. And yet this very same person worked in an environment in the surgical setting where he was chronically exposed to microwave radiation, the levels which are, you know, tens of trillions times the normal background levels that we had as children. And subsequently, he had succumbed to a mosquito bite that put him in a wheelchair. Now, was he alone on this camping trip? No, I'm sure his family was bitten by mosquitoes. They didn't end up in a wheelchair. So why was this supposedly healthy man brought to his knees by a mosquito bite? Because he had a compromised immune system for chronic microwave exposure in his occupational setting, working in and around a bunch of Wi-Fi systems and telemetry systems and wireless devices and scanners and everything else. So what is the point of this story? Number one, the measles is not a death sentence and should not be used under any circumstances as a pretext for forced vaccinations. You must say no. And the second point of this program is if you're in a situation where you're in a chronic microwave exposure environment inside sheet metal walls, such as a student at Troy High School or a staff member at Troy High School, it's just a matter of time for you. Or if you're a flight attendant, or if you work in you know, the surgery unit with the stainless steel walls, you better wake up and smell the roses before they're laying on your tummy when you're 6 feet under. I'm just warning you, folks. I'm just warning you. And we need to get out in front of this propaganda because it's more of the same. They're trying to freak everybody out and tell everybody that you need to get these vaccines or everybody's going to die. The people that get sick, folks, are the people that are sick, and a lot of these people are immunocompromised from medication or things that they've chosen to do to themselves or in places that they've chosen to work. Okay? And it's sad, don't get me wrong. It's sad, folks. You know, there are those out there that, oh, Joe, you know, you have some compassion. I do have compassion. Why do you think I'm telling you how not to get scammed by the media into relinquishing your virgin bloodstream to the tyrannical eugenesis of the petrochemical pill-pushing pimps in the white coats who refuse to acknowledge Section 13 of the vaccine inserts that says that the vaccines have not been tested for mutagenic potential, carcinogenic potential, or impairment of fertility, ladies and gentlemen. How can any rational, sane human being that can read the English language with even a 7th grade command of the English language accept that vaccines are safe and effective in light of the aforementioned statement that I've just rolled off with the tip of my tongue? That's right. Let me tell you something. Some people hate the truth, and I'm going to tell the truth. And if you're in an airplane as a flight attendant getting microwaved by the airlines because you think it's a cool job and you can, and no, it's not. You're being microwaved. You're being microwaved. If you're in a classroom with metal walls like Troy High School and you're in there with 35 Chromebooks running right now, plus the 35 cell phones that are all broadcasting in Wi-Fi mode because they want to check their Instagram and promote more hate speech about Mr. Imbriano, you've got 70 wireless devices in each classroom at Troy broadcasting inside sheet metal walls with the doors closed. Enjoy your oxygen deprivation, your pink fluorescent lighting that's destroying your photoreceptors in your eyes and draining all your vitamin D out of your life. And the microwave exposure, right? Of course you're going to get sick and go have your school lunch full of glyphosate and high fructose corn syrup and your chocolate milk full of RBST and everything else. What can I do, folks? All I can do is tell it like it is, right? That's all I can do. All I can do is say it the way I sees it, right? And when you've got some of the most supposedly educated people in the world that are telling us how horrible this stuff is, there's all these scientists have gone on record saying how horrible microwave radiation is for your health. And school officials and corporate officials don't want to do anything about it, and they continue to chronically expose their employees and their subjects and their pupils and their staff to. Well, hey, you know, that's when you got to figure things out on your own. Say, hey, is my life, is my health really worth this paycheck? Seriously. All right, so I want you all to keep your eyes and ears on this story coming out of Israel. This flight attendant, this 43-year-old flight attendant from Israel, is in a coma after the measles. And let me tell you, folks, she's in a microwave oven every day before she ended up in this coma. And you take a radio frequency emissions device, measurement device. Take an RF meter on an airplane. Next time you go on an airplane, it'll be pegged the whole time. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, folks. The radiation levels inside an airplane are off the charts. Off the charts, ladies and gentlemen. Distance is your friend when it comes to being exposed to microwaves. You don't want to watch the popcorn pop, laying, you know, these girls, I know these young girls that would lay on their stomachs with their hands on their elbows, you know, watching the microwave popcorn pop, and, you know, they're having Down syndrome kids at age like 28 and stuff. Microwaves damage the eggs. Apple666.org or WiFiDangers.com, and I explain how the microwaves damage the eggs. We got military studies that show how that non-thermal, low power level microwave exposure causes morphological changes to a subcellular component called the smooth endoplasmic reticulum in cells, right? And that subcellular component, the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, just so happens to be the subcellular component of the human egg that runs the Zoner reaction. That's the reaction where when an egg hits, a sperm hits an egg, it hardens, only lets one in, right? You get a bunch of sperm in there, the egg doesn't turn into you or me. It turns into a pile of pee, right? That's what happens. Microwaves are a weapon, folks, and you know, at the very least, you should all have an RF meter so you can measure the levels in and around your environment. And if you're in an environment that's got sheet metal walls with high-powered weaponry, you need to ask yourself a question. Number one, what am I doing here? Let me rephrase this. You need to ask yourself several questions. You may find yourself behind the wheel of that fine automobile, and you may ask yourself, how did I get here? And you may find yourself in that big house with a beautiful wife and children, and you may ask yourself, how did I get here? When the days go by, right? I'm not a talking head, folks. You need to ask yourself, what am I doing in this environment, and why am I allowing this environment to exist, and why am I allowing other people to be in this environment with me to be harmed? Wake up! Wake up! Wake up and go to sleep for all you people that are working for the man. Wake up and go to sleep, all you people that are working for the school district. Wake up and go to sleep, all you people that work for the government. And wake up and get mad as all heck, folks, if you're none of the above. Because we have no choice. We've got to protect ourselves. We got to protect our families. We got to protect our children from the weaponized idiots that are making health decisions for our parents, our family members, our spouses, and our offspring. Whether it's an airline or whether it's a teacher, whether they're microwaving your children at school or whether they're microwaving your sister in the friendly skies, we got to wake them up, folks. All right, this is Joe Imbriano, PO Box 4121, Fullerton, California, 92834, coming at you live from the streets of Orange County, California. Today, under a heavily chemtrailed sky, it's pushing 85 degrees at before lunchtime here. Weather forecast, once again, for Orange County is fair with a 100% chance of chemtrails today, ladies and gentlemen. And this weather forecast has been brought to you by yours truly. God bless all of you in Jesus' name. We're going to win this because the liars are losers and they serve the devil, and the devil's a loser, folks. Okay? Always remember that the devil is a loser. And the God that we serve, he already won. All right? Take care. We'll see you guys. God bless.